You got to try this, you got to try and do the messages are going from the brain to there. Anatomically on intact, but the messages fail to go. You got to try hard. So, okay, first day give him a goal of 2 inches out, abduction and so on and on. While at the same time, Karen Fisher, she was there, she found that the problem was some relationship with the parents or the school teacher or something. There was something else underneath. So the person had the full physical rehabilitation, but as a part of the team, the real concern was also addressed. Now that is somatization. That's the worst case, or the first major case that I came across when I was the registrar. So you can come across that. That's an extreme case. We're talking about here things like tension, back pain, all because of stresses, but the treatment is often non-pharmacological. And all those will give you confidence. Now, we've spoken about the person's own confidence, but I think you also need to have confidence in your clinician. If the clinician can't give you a C leg, it's not because he doesn't want to give you a C leg. He probably hasn't got that tool, that he can't prescribe that because of some government regulation or so on. We can't prescribe in England, we can't prescribe running blades to children because of the regulation. But don't shoot the messenger. And as soon as they start criticizing and saying, you can't give me, you are wrong, you are the culprit, you are, you break all relationship with the person who probably has your own interest at heart in his. NHS bashing is not unusual, and sometimes it is pure misinterpretation. I had a lady who came to see me. She was a solicitor from Afro-Caribbean origin. She struggled with the PCTs for 2 months to insist to come to see us in my place. And she came in, and first thing she said is, I want high definition skin. And I said, why? But we will come to it and look at it. But why? She said, because in such and such a center, a black lady went and they gave her a white skin. I said, look, we'll come to that and talk about it later. Now, I knew the real story. And that was that an Asian lady was given an Asian colored skin on a foot amputation, but she wanted high definition. So the color was not a question. She wanted high definition, and the doctor said, you can get it, but I will need to get authorization from the PCT. Now, this bit of news was out in the public in the newspapers. NHS gives black woman white leg. That's what she had heard. Now, towards the end of the consultation with her, which is a 1.5 to 2 hour consult, I could explain to her, but she didn't mind. And I can also say that I've had arguably one of the best backhanded compliments when elsewhere, public speaking, she said that she came ready to fight for what I wanted, only to find the door ajar. But it isn't a question of explaining. NHS bashing makes things much, much more difficult, not always for the clinicians, but even for the patients, because they come with a completely wrong perception. At the end of the day, one has to be honest to clinical decision making. Users, you have users as pressure groups. I know there are a lot of users, a lot of you are involved in a lot of good work. But I do believe that there are actually roles which often should not get mixed up. There's a pressure group, there are pressure groups, and they should work, and they do most valuable work as a pressure group. There are PPEs, which stand for public patient engagement. Any committee of the Royal College will always have a patient representative, but their role is slightly different, sitting over there. And the two roles are different. If the two merge together, I believe that the end result is more negative, because there's disharmony within the committee, and the whole agenda sort of gets changed. And people talk about these two roles, but I think there's a third role, and that's the role of the role model. I think this, today, I've heard talks here and presentations from users. I think they're excellent role models. But then that is a third role, and all these roles, I believe, should not get mixed up within the same. One has to be able to demarcate them. Sports, because amputation and limb loss is a physical problem, one of the ways to overcome the disadvantage is to go and achieve whatever you are back, if it is you lost a leg, walking or running. And the ultimate there is probably the gold medal in the Olympics or the World Championships. And I admire all that. But let us not forget the massive success many others have had outside the field of sport and are still amputees. 4 years ago, after the London Paralympics, at a national ISPO meeting, they wanted a gold medalist, a prosthetist to present a gold medalist who'd come and show his gold medal and so on, and how they achieved it. And there were people in the committee who said, no, you can't do this because it's luxury of the West and all that. I said, whatever it is, you can't not give the person the opportunity to come and speak and show, because it is good. Though if you want to address it in some way, the way is to show another person with a different achievement. And I don't know if you were there, Sandy, but we've got Carson Hart to come. Carson Hart works in the Cambodia Trust for ISPO and in the Far East. He came and gave a presentation on what people in, I think it was Burma, he works in half a dozen countries there. No, it was in the Philippines. A young girl of about 18, herself an amputee, graduated from one of the ISPO schools and is the sole breadwinner of the family. That is success. When we talk about sport and gold medal, and there are quite a lot of people here also, excellent. But don't forget that for some people, another form of success is as important. I make a big point of that because, yes, there will always be people coming with a lot of sports achievements and so on. We have introduced, and the first launch of an IC2A lecture at the World Congress. IC2A is the user organization, and Sandy actually happens to be the executive secretary. After the prestige professional clinical lecture, I said at the opening ceremony we're going to have a user speak. There were about 11 recommendations. 2 or 3 of them were excellent in sports and gold medal, but you see them a lot and they'll come and talk about themselves. But I said we want somebody who is going to give a message which can be a general message, and ideally the amputation could be incidental. If a lady becomes a CEO or whatever, I think she's become that on merit. Or if an Asian person becomes the Prime Minister of England, whatever, but it's on merit, and talk about the person just as the person and the person's achievements alone. Not bring out. Anyway, the IC2A inaugural lecture will be given by Giles Dooley, who lost 3 limbs in Helmand province. He's a photographer, journalist. You all can Google him and see his YouTube presentation. He talks about what he's doing today. And his message actually is advocating rehabilitation for places where people don't get them. And some of the titles of his YouTube talk is "Together We Can." And that's him at the bottom, and I've got the last slide. I end off with him taking pictures of somebody. I think it's in Syria. I can't remember. But there are 3 quick studies. How are you doing for time? There are 3 quick studies that I want to highlight, which are relevant for the subject. Is there a need for counselling, and who provides it? At Stanmore, we did this study, and we found that yes, most of them thought that there's a doctor who provides the counselling. Second most they thought was the prosthetist who provides the counselling. And the lowest on that list was the psychologist. But the main reason why people needed this counselling, whatever, the physical, practical problems. What if my artificial leg breaks? What if I can't do X, Y, Z? Psychologists may not be able to say much, but in the normal conversation, the prosthetist also provides the information and the backup. It's fallen again, is it? I think they can probably hear me. I could talk loud enough.
It's just for the healing loop.
So yes, there is a need, but when is the need? Patient comes in on day 1 and said, 20 years ago, everybody said, yes, counselling, counselling, counselling for everything, as if it's the answer to everything. No. When you come on day 1 and you say, okay, John, you need some counselling, you better go and see my counsellor. No, I can manage. The way to identify what we thought was introduce them to everybody, that we have a counsellor. If you need it, then you can come back. The second return and a request for counselling was, in our view, proof or confirmation that the person needed counselling, because they came back on their own for a service they knew existed. And interestingly, that wasn't on day 1, that was roughly a year or 2 later. So when the government says after various disasters we're going to have a counsellor, we have counselling session, that's fine. I said, a lot of it has been done. Yes, then it's good. But less than a year, they withdraw it. That's probably just the time they need it. Anxiety and depression in amputees? Yes. We did another study that was published in the BMJ, and that showed that the average score on anxiety and depression of patients with amputations coming to our clinic was lower than the HAD score in the London population. Limbless Association, when they heard of that, were a bit annoyed and upset, until they realized that even the public out there, the population out there, has a certain level of anxiety, whether it's because they're about drugs or breakdown of marriage or jobs or economy, whatever it may be, but as a population. And I think it is this old style day hospital when patients come regularly to see patients and all that, that we were quite inadvertently providing them with support, which might have helped. The last one was a study also on HAD scale. When people first come to us, the HAD scale is low. 2 months later, it will improve. That's hospital anxiety and depression. But a year later, it goes up when they're discharged and back in the community. Why? Because when they're back in the community, the reality of the disability hits them, the practical problems, and it goes up. That's another point that we need to be aware of. I've mentioned the placebo effect, and it's the whole form of consultation, and that, this is a slide from last year, the ritual of consultation, which I think is important because it is all about communicating. You can't teach communication in a class or a workshop. It's something you pick up over the years. And I think everybody gets it wrong sometimes. I've got it wrong sometimes when I misunderstood a person. But that's what it is. Because when you are different, sometimes you don't see the millions of people who accept you for what you are. You only notice the person who doesn't look at it that way. And that's Jodie Picoult speaking. And I think that's the last slide I was going to leave you with. But considering Cape Town is just 5 months away, I have to leave you with the slide of Cape Town to remind you that's where we're going to I want to see as many of you as possible. And this is total rehabilitation achieved by our IC2A lecturer. Thank you.